Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Here we are again, probably at the last golden hour of this year that I'm going to be recording. Check out my cool green jacket that I thrifted, pretty cool. But I just want to share a little lessons that I learned for myself for this first year gardening in a bigger space. So the first thing that I learned is that my soil needed some mulching right from the beginning. It was really hard to grow seeds in it because it kind of just formed like a top layer and the seeds couldn't poke through it. So I think adding mulch helped to aerate the soil a lot more. So I think that's my lesson number one. My lesson number two is that my planning with my space wasn't so great. I got really excited. I planted a whole bunch of like really interesting, cool seeds, which is amazing. It was really fun to grow, but I feel like I wasted a lot of space as well. I could have grown a lot more vegetables that I would have enjoyed and ate. There's some spaces in the beds that weren't even used up, especially that one bed where my greenery was. Half of the season, the zinnias were so large that they shaded out the whole entire bed, and I mean it just ended up being a wasted space. So I think I need to do a better job planning out where and what I'm going to plant. Lesson number three. So I think I overplanted my tomatoes. It comes with a little bit of difficulty to say that because I really enjoyed growing all of the varieties, sharing that, but I feel like it was also wasted a lot. So tomatoes for sure were grown a lot, but I am enjoying my tomato soup, tomato paste that I made and froze. So that was great. But I think I need to plan a little bit better with that because a lot of the tomatoes rotted on the tomatoes. I'm actually giving away one of my beds, as you remember. This big tomato bed is actually going to be going to my mother-in-law, so it gives me only one bed for the tomatoes. So I'll plan better of what I want to grow, what we eat, and just be a little more mindful about that. Another lesson for this 2021 gardening year is definitely grow flowers in your edible garden space. I grew zinnias, they were so easy, and I'm so glad I did that. Literally brought me so much joy just to walk out and see how much hummingbirds, bees, butterflies, all of the just ecosystem came together just because I planted flowers, and they were so pretty to look at. I had dinner bouquets all the time. So definitely going to be planting more flowers next year. Another lesson that I learned is that I need to start planting my winter stuff much earlier than the winter actually comes. So start them in July rather than start them in September like I did. These cauliflowers, I'm just gonna keep them covered because it's really cold right now. They are not growing, and that's because I started them way too late, extremely late. Lesson again for this year is if I want to grow something cold hardy, just start them a little early. My radishes are doing good, but that's because they grow faster. They don't require that much time to mature like cauliflower do. My latest lesson that I've learned once I was cleaning everything up, I ended up creating a compost pile, but that was only at the end of the season. I wish I would have done it throughout the whole season. That garden did grow stuff for me. So onions, some tomatoes, some catnip, other herbs, but I wish I wouldn't have wasted that space just for that because I ended up putting my leftovers, my compost, just kind of anywhere for my chickens. I wish I would have just started piling on that bed with compost material right from the get-go because I would have had a pretty heaping compost pile by this time, and I could have recycled and composted my tomatoes because right now the way that I buried my tomatoes, as you remember, buried them underneath the soil, put more soil on top and put mulching on top. I've heard few people saying that be careful, that heat is not enough to break down the tomatoes because in the spring you'll have a forest of tomatoes coming up. And honestly, I don't want that. As much as I love tomatoes, I do not want that. So it's kind of in the back of my mind, making me worried a little bit. So hopefully that doesn't happen. If it does, I'm just gonna be pulling out tomatoes. And so that just made me think that why didn't I just pull the plug earlier on those garden beds just to create that compost pile right away. So that's another lesson that I learned. And finally, the last lesson of 2021, just do it. Just plant it, just grow it. Honestly, my first garden was out of a rotting tomato that was sitting on my counter that somebody gave me. It was completely for free. I literally just put it in the ground. My ground is clay. It was bad. So I just put it in the ground, and then I found some leftover potting mix from like an old flower pot. I put that around to make the clay not so sticky. My tomatoes came up and they grew amazing. They were so tall that some of my friends that grew tomatoes next to me in my area, they were impressed and seeing like, how in the world did you grow that tomato? Literally, it was the best thing ever. And then just the amount of peace and therapy and clarity of mind that gardening brings me. First of all, it disconnects me from all of this chaos. You're hearing all of these news about crypto, about economy, about food system, education. All of it is just, it can be very overwhelming. Important to upkeep yourself on those things. Yes, it is important, but it's very dangerous to be sucked in, and then you have that crippling anxiety and fear and depression, and it just kind of hammers you down. The more you look at it, the more you invest yourself in it, it hammers you down even more. So I definitely encourage you guys to try gardening, maybe not even for food, but just for the process of it. It teaches you patience, it teaches you wonder, amazement, something new. It's such an amazing discovery to discover all kinds of varieties. I would have never thought that there were purple peppers. I would have never thought that beets are so easy to grow, that radishes are so easy to grow. I'm dehydrating my beets that I harvested last video, so I'm gonna be grinding that up and putting those in my smoothie. I'm gonna try to pickle my radishes. So I'm trying so many new things, and honestly, that was the whole goal of growing a garden, is to eat healthier, to consume a little bit healthier. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, for joining my Garden a Little 2021. And I just want to encourage you guys to go garden a little, to try it out. Pick up a seed, pick up an old tomato, cucumber, whatever you like, radish seed, anything, put it in the ground, grow it, see how it does. It just becomes your baby, and then you're so super proud of it. It's just very, very contagious, and I hope that I can pass that on to you. Thank you so much again for following my journey, and I hope I see you guys in 2022. Go garden a little. Bye, guys.